Is atheist?
I
Catholic Church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
I won't talk to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not.
I realize that unfortunately some people look at what he's doing right now as him being like a strong guy. But what this is, do you remember the bully from high school? I'm not saying he's a bully, but do you remember the bully from high school who turns out actually doesn't know how to fight and is kind of a chicken, but they hang around with some guys that are actually fighters and big guys? So once they're around their friends, they have a lot of mouth. They can say this and say that and cursing you out because they know their friends will defend them, right? But if you catch them alone, it's another story. That's Jordan Peterson and people like him. Donald Trump, same thing. Jordan Peterson has a lot of wealth, and with that wealth comes power, right? So he's not really worried about what this guy has to say. Not because he's a tough guy, but because he has that wealth and power, like Donald Trump, right? Like, take away Donald Trump's wealth and power, and you have another story coming. But here's the reality. If he's a Christian, why not admit it? If he's not a Christian, why not admit that? Right? This is not a guy who's afraid to speak his mind. Right? He says all kind of things that he knows are controversial because he's not afraid, and he, freedom of speech and whatever, right? Men should be men, right? But when it comes to, hey, are you a Christian? Well, I'm not going to tell you. What? And then if you're part of the cult, you'll agree with him and be like, yeah, that's none of his business. He doesn't have to tell you anything. Mind your business. You don't need to know what his religious beliefs is. That's private. Right.
Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
This is Pod 5.
Hi there.
Hi, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Gerard.
Hello, Gerard.
Nice to meet you, sir. So you've said that worship is when you prioritize and sacrifice for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a hierarchy in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I prioritize and sacrifice for my wife.
I don't know, I've seen some pretty bad.
Prioritize and sacrifice for my wife more than I would.
What's your name?
Gerard.
Hello, Gerard.
Nice to meet you, sir. So you've said that worship is when you prioritize and sacrifice for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a hierarchy in there.
Sure. So
just look at his weird expression on his face, trying to look all serious and sophisticated. But there's a hierarchy in there. Now, again, we got to realize as humans that we have a lot of vulnerabilities, psychological vulnerabilities. So if you like Jordan Peterson or you're part of the right-wing movement, you actually don't recognize the game that he's playing there. This comment that he made about, oh, there's a hierarchy in there, you'll think, oh, this dumb liberal trying to be smart and doesn't recognize that, or he's playing dumb. He doesn't recognize that he's not just saying anything that you prioritize. He specifically said earlier, hierarchy. Fine. But listen to the example this guy gives in the context of hierarchy and see if he's making a valid point of like, oh, hierarchy.
So I prioritize and sacrifice for my wife more than I would prioritize and sacrifice for a random person on the street, right?
Probably, yeah.
Presumably. Do I worship
I don't know,
my
I've
wife?
seen some pretty bad marriages.
Assuming.
So the whole comment about I've seen some pretty bad marriages is like a distraction. He's not an idiot. He may act like one, and I think, just like all of us, he does exhibit some stupidity sometime. But I think he's smart enough to know that this guy is exposing what he said as ridiculous. The idea that your definition of worship is prioritizing something And then you're going to try to put a caveat in, oh, well, but there's a priority. Okay, so what do you think this guy prioritizes more than his own goddamn wife? Like, there's a hierarchy? Okay, so what's above his wife? Like, that's pretty goddamn high. So that is the problem that Jordan Peterson is running into. But because he is so spineless and dishonest, he doesn't have the strength to simply admit that his definition of worship is stupid and simply modify it. Like, he's willing to waste all this time going in circles and, I've heard things about marriage, whatever. All these distractions and whatever, and the funny squinty eye nonsense that he does. All of this just to say, well, okay, let me clarify. Either abandon the definition because it's a stupid definition, or qualify it to a degree where marriage wouldn't be worship because X, Y, and Z. Like, that's the thing. Make a position that marriage, because marriage matches what he says. That's the honest truth. Marriage, his marriage to his wife, or how he feels about his wife, matches what Jordan Peterson defined as worship. But he doesn't want to say that that is worship. He doesn't believe that this guy worships his wife. So the honest thing to do is to modify the definition such to exclude this kind of prioritization. Add an extra detail that makes it special. It's beyond just the way you treat your wife. There's worship is on another level, and define what that level is. People would say he's not a good speaker because he does do like some word salad, but he is a good speaker. He knows how to articulate when he wants to. I think when he's doing the word salad, it's just because he's been caught, right? Someone caught him in a lie or caught him in a deception or exposing a dumb point that he's making, and he's not sure how to wiggle his way out of it. So then he starts doing this like word salad thing. The other thing is also this kind of this branding thing where he's trying to, like how Trump tries to present himself as this amazing business guy. So his thing is, I'm this amazing intellectual. I'm so smart, right? I'm so smart, and I the principles of the psyche is that, and people don't understand it. The mind, it's a photosynthesis of the, you know what I mean? Like, that's his thing, right? So sometimes he's just doing his thing of like, I'm a professor, smart guy. Other times he got busted and he's trying to wiggle his way out of the situation, right? But outside of that, if you listen to him enough, you realize this guy is a fairly smart guy who's fairly capable. Some of his behavior does match that of an idiot, but you got to remember, this is not a random guy. This guy's running a business. He has a brand. He has this sort of this act that he's putting on as a right-wing propagandist, right? So you got to factor that in. You can't just look at it. A lot of times I see left-wing media folks, they look at a lot of these guys as idiots. I'm sure some of them are, but a lot of times it's just an act, because you'll have a guy who's like a Harvard graduate. I mean, this guy was a professor, right? He literally was a professor, right? So I don't think he's like a moron. I think he is actually fairly smart. Now, that doesn't mean he hasn't made dumb points. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you can't have dumb ideas. But again, a lot of what he's doing, you have to think of it as performative.
A good marriage, are you saying I worship my wife?
I'm trying to define worship.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So prioritize and sacrifice. I do
the
those
higher
things.
it is in the hierarchy, the more what you're doing is akin to worship. But even in your trivial acts of attention, you're prioritizing and partaking in worship, even if you don't know it.
So I am
and
prioritizing.
it's partly, with regard to your wife, say.
So now he's going the Gish Gallop route, right? He's just rambling on and on, saying a bunch of random things. Oh, the hierarchy of the this and that. Like, how does that exclude the prioritization of your wife as marriage? Like, the thing is to either exclude it and say, no, I don't think, like, he hasn't even said that, I don't think. Like, simply say, hey, I don't think that you worship your wife. Because when I say worship, it's not just the prioritization and the whatever that I said before. I'm going to add something new that you can use to understand how I distinguish worship from, how you would treat your wife. But instead of doing that, he's just saying random stuff. It's disconnected from making a particular point. He's just saying stuff. Oh, this and that, and the priority, this and that. Okay. And, like, number one, yes or no, do you think he worships his wife? I don't think he has acknowledged that. Just say no. Just say no. I don't think you worship your wife. And then explain why. Right? He's not explaining why. He's not saying, like, no, I don't think you worship your wife. And the reason why is because like worship, when I say worship, it means not just those things I said before. It means those things plus something else. He's not adding something else. He's just rambling.
So why do you value your wife? You do value your wife.
Yes, I love her. So I prioritize and I sacrifice for her.
Right. So that's within the confines of love, let's say.
Sure.
What else does it serve?
What else does what serve?
He says that's in the confines of love, let's say. Further illustrating that his feelings about his wife qualifies as worship per Jordan Peterson's definition. Like he's only making it worse. He literally puts his hands together like a pyramid. And what do you think? Remember he said it's a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy. What's at the top of this hierarchy of love? I mean, this can get a little tricky, right? Because does a man love his wife more than his mother? And then even if we go that route, so then if he loves his mother more than his wife, so then does he worship the mother? Like, how does the hierarchy? So if the guy doesn't believe in God, because the next level up is you would say religious folks might say they love God more than anything else, right? So it's like God is the ultimate who I love, and then it's either your mother or your wife comes next, right? But if you don't believe in God, then what could you love more than your mother or your wife? Like, this is literally pointing out that Jordan Peterson's definition of worship is stupid, right? And he's not even trying to make a point or correct himself or whatever. He just said, oh, and this is the hierarchy of this, and why do you love your wife? Like, why are you asking him this? Like, how is this acknowledging whether he's worshiping his wife or not, or modifying your definition such that you exclude? Like, you're not doing either of those things. You're just like saying stuff.
Your love in your marriage?
I mean, I'm married to my wife because I love her. That's also why I prioritize and sacrifice for her. Right. I certainly wouldn't think I worship her, and I don't think anyone else would make that.
Are you making that claim? I'm trying to make a definition.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's a higher.
I'm trying to make a definition. No acknowledgement or concession that, yes, I understand you don't worship your wife. That's not what I meant. I meant something else. Too dishonest. And this is the same guy that earlier in this debate, he made this whole to-do about, oh, he's so honest that he would never lie. So the thing was like, oh, would you lie to save your life? Would you tell a trivial lie just to save your life? Right? And there was like a Nazi analogy that was given. And he was all like, oh, why are you using a Nazi? And it's a hypothetical. It was so difficult. Like, he pretended to be such a virtuous guy that even in a hypothetical, he wasn't willing to say, well, yeah, of course I would lie to save my family's life. He wanted to play games and talk about, oh, I would have made several mistakes, before I ended up in that situation in the first place. And this is part of this conservative ideology, right? There's never an acceptance of people just having bad luck, right? You were just born in the wrong place in the globe, right? You're born in the wrong place in the globe, and this is the place where Hitler rose to power. And rather than acknowledging that, hey, it sucks, and let's talk about the solution and what you're going to do about it, it's more so, well, it's your fault for being there. Like, what? You know what I mean? It's just, like, wow.
Hierarchy of attentional priority, and as you move up it or down it, depending on whether you think about it as a pinnacle or a foundation, you move more towards worship. Right, okay. So even the small things, I'll give you an example. Imagine you go on a date. Well, imagine that your aim is...
Again, remember, we're already at the top of the mountain. There's nothing higher than love for wife or mother. And he keeps over and over again expressing this, oh, there's a hierarchy and it's upper, like there's nothing higher than that.
It's a long-term relationship like a marriage. Okay, now imagine that your aim is short-term sexual gratification. Your pattern of attention is going to vary during the date, depend on your ultimate end.
Of
That's
course.
the hierarchy. The way that you attend to your wife is dependent on your ultimate aims, even if you don't know it.
So at what point is it worship? Because it sounds like you're saying
It's
worship is almost a
shades.
spectrum, right? Or it's not a binary. It's not a.
It's kind of
quantum.
like, that's a good
So
question.
when
It's
is,
like,
when is it worship as opposed to just I love my wife?
I can guarantee you he's not going to answer that question. And this is proof that he's playing games. Right? He will not allow you to nail down an official definition of what he calls worship, because it defeats his whole point. The whole point of this prompt or whatever is where he's saying something like atheists worship things. They don't worship God, but they worship stuff. Right? That's his whole thing. He's trying to say that they're worshiping things, right? Which is a silly claim to make, right? I should say it's a silly claim. He's saying something silly. It's not just, the claim itself is not silly. What he's saying is silly in terms of what he means by it. Like, he doesn't mean anything by it, right? This is just his like generic attack on atheists. Oh, atheists, you guys worship stuff just like other people. You have a different type of religion. So that's what he's doing, right? But to avoid exposing how empty it is what he's saying, he needs to play games. So he gives out this vague definition of worship so that a ton of things can apply to worship. But then these people smartly came up with like, okay, well, what about marriage? That is a problem for what he's trying to do, right? But rather than man up, he wants to play games and be like, and keep saying the same thing over and over again. And now he's like, what's your definition? Like, how does it get to? He can't answer that. Answering that is problematic. So I guarantee you what's coming next: more word salad, more circular, whatever, more games, right? This is not man behavior. Like, a grown man acknowledges you made a mistake. Hey, bad definition, right? Like, step up. Like, own it. Make it better, or admit that what you said didn't make any sense. No. This is feminine behavior. No offense to women, right? But as a man, you're supposed to, like, we want to talk about, that's a conservative thing. Men are supposed to be tough and we stand up and they have this sort of fantasy vision. Like, they make fun of women for having this fantasy Disney idea of men and marriage. But then they have this fantasy image of what it is to be a man, you know? Back in the days of wizards. And dragons. Holy shit. Just for me to even say that, I couldn't hold it in. But I mean, it's true, right? So they have to look at somebody like Jordan Peterson. He's a strong man, and yes, and away with you. You're quite something, aren't you? Right? He's a tough guy, and he's not gonna let some liberal talk smack to him and disrespect him. I'm Jordan Peterson, bitch. Holy shit.
the closer you get to the top or the bottom, the more it's more like
How
worship.
close to the top? Because I don't think I worship anything. And if you're saying I have to hit a certain threshold for it to be worship, it is possible I don't worship anything then, right?
It's not possible that you don't worship anything.
What do I worship?
Because you wouldn't attend. Well, love.
So you think I
apparently.
worship love?
Do you attend?
Listen to what he just said. He sounds like Kamala Harris. Like, these are the people who would make fun of Kamala Harris for her word salad. And she does the word salad. But what did he just do? You'd have to attend and then love. And, I mean, rewind it. Like, he's just, like, saying random words. And again, I'm telling you, the reason for this is because he doesn't have the strength and maturity to simply admit that he's wrong or modify his point. That's what all this is about. Back and forth, and look at how long he's dragging this on. He's such a weakling.
Attend in consequence of love? I'm trying to define something. What do you mean worship?
Well,
I told you what I meant. What do you mean?
So I mean a word.
Jordan Peterson is the one who says that these guys are worshiping something. Why is it that he can't define what he means by worship? He gave a definition that doesn't work. Like, these guys point out why it doesn't work because they said that applies to marriage. Doesn't want to acknowledge that. Doesn't want to further define it. And they go back and forth. So now his next tactic is, you define what you mean by worship. Like, what they mean, they're not the ones who said they worship something. You said that. These are your words. If you're saying that they're worshiping something, you need to explain yourself. Explain what the hell you meant when you say that these atheists are worshiping something. If you believe that, explain what you mean. And unfortunately, this guy fell for it. I don't know why he's defining what he means by worship. He didn't say worship. Jordan Peterson did.
Something you worship is something that you have a reverential view for in a manner in which you believe it to be above and beyond.
I'm just gonna pause it here because I'm gonna predict what Jordan Peterson is doing. By asking him to define worship, which serves no purpose to this discussion, he is allowing an escape vector to hide from being exposed for having a nonsensical point. Because now what happens is this guy is going to define what he thinks worship is, and now Jordan Peterson is going to challenge his definition and say, well, I wouldn't say it's worship because da-da-da-da, and actually there's also things, and he's going to push the conversation to let's talk about the definition of worship, as opposed to talking about his assertion, which is that these atheists worship worship things. Right? He's making that assertion, but instead of talking about that, let's talk about the definition of worship. Right. And a right-winger would respond to me saying that and say, well, it was the liberals who are talking about defining words. Yes, they were the ones who did it, but he refused to define it. Right? He refused to define it. So Jordan Peterson is the one who is putting an anchor on this conversation, holding on to let's talk about definitions. Like, they asked him for his definition. He could have just given a definition and then they could move on and talk about the prompt. Right? He gave a definition. It didn't work in one scenario. He could have simply modified it so it does work and exclude marriage, and then they could continue to talk about the prompt. But Jordan Peterson is not allowing that. He won't allow them to have a conversation about his assertion. He's trying to have them spend all this time talking about other stuff. Then the clock runs out. Then it's kind of like, oh, nice to meet you. That was a great conversation. Yeah, this is really cool. Yeah, you were very thoughtful. And then you got people like Ben Shapiro, who literally posted the other day about how after the debates, how he was so friendly with the liberals. Like, they were all like really cool behind the scenes. You know, people were saying how we were having whatever, but actually it was kind of really cool.
Normal things you like you.
So do you have that attitude towards your wife?
I have that.
Do you
attitude.
privilege her compared to other women?
Of course, I privilege her compared to other women, but I don't worship her. Nor does she worship me.
By the definition you just offered, yes, you do, because you just offered a definition that.
So before, he ran away from admitting that his definition means that this guy worships his wife. He ran away from that. Didn't want to agree or disagree, just played games. So then he gets the other guy to define worship, and now he uses his definition to say, well, actually, you do worship your wife. Like, bro. Like, and again, we're still not talking about his prompt, because I guarantee you, when he said that atheists worship things, he didn't mean that they worship their wives. Right? I mean, he probably would want to go with the stereotypical talking point of, you know, maybe atheists spend a lot of time trying to disprove God, and like, that's their religion. Like, oh, your whole religion, it's a religion. Atheism is a religion. You're devoting so much of your time. Like, why do you care? If you don't believe in God, then just don't believe in God and live your life. But no, it's like a religion, right? But instead of doing that, we're doing this back and forth definitions, and then he defines it, and now like, oh, well, actually, you do worship your wife. Like, bro, like, why are we wasting time with all this nonsense? Why doesn't Jordan Peterson be honest about when he said that they worship things? Talk about what you meant. You didn't mean he was worshiping his wife. I mean, if you're gonna use the tired talking points, then do that. Or if you have something unique, you're supposed to be a smart intellectual guy. If you're gonna bring something unique to the conversation, some unique angle of, well, actually, atheists, they worship money because blah blah blah. He has nothing. He's got nothing. So now he's just playing games.
Involve prioritization and elevation.
Well, and thinking that she is divine above and beyond what a normal natural
women.
phenomenon can be. Not other women, no, beyond any human being could ever be. I will prioritize her over
See,
any
you're
other
making
human, but I
the
don't
assumption.
think that she is some
You're making the
supernatural being.
assumption that only the thing at the top or the bottom has anything to do with worship. And I'm saying that's not true. It's a hierarchy of prioritization. And there's either something at
Again, he's saying the hierarchy thing as if it makes a point. Right? It's a hierarchy, okay. And his wife is at the top of that. You know what I mean? So, by your definition, you're saying, oh, now he's really got you're mind fucked. Because I'm going back to his Jordan Peterson definition and say, by your definition, he worships his wife, which he didn't want to say that because that kind of was a stupid point. But now he can say he worships his wife by playing based on the other guy's definition. By your definition, you do worship your wife.
at the top or the bottom, depending on the metaphor, or you're fragmented and confused. Those are the only options.
So let's say
you're
I'm
either going in many directions,
Okay.
or you're going in one
So
direction.
let's suppose I'm fragmented and confused. Then you
Yeah.
agree I don't worship anything.
No, then you'd worship multiple things.
So what's the threshold when it's worship, right? I prioritize a lot of stuff.
I said that the closer you get to the pinnacle, or the
How
closer
close?
you get.
Can you give me some sort of metric? How close do I got to get to this pinnacle?
Do you know the difference between cheap literature and deep literature?
Yes.
Okay, that's the same issue. And how do you distinguish between them? What's the difference between cheap and deep?
I mean, it's really an opinion-based thing, right?
Is
I mean,
it? So it's just an opinion that
plenty of-
Dostoevsky is better than a porno magazine.
Well, I've spoken to people who think To Kill a Mockingbird's cheap. It's one of my favorite books. So, I mean, people will differ on
Well,
opinions.
just because people are stupid about things doesn't mean that their opinion is valid.
That's certainly true. I do
let
agree
me
with
ask
it. I
you.
agree with that.
Okay, well, do you think there is a hierarchy in literary quality?
I think that there is a hierarchy to an extent in literary quality, but I think once you get to
You see how much time we're spending not talking about how it is that these atheists are worshiping something? This guy has no soul, no character, no spine. He's not the guy that should be talking to anybody about what it is to be a man and talking to young men and teaching them how to be masculine. This is not masculine. You make a mistake, own up to it. That is a key thing of masculinity. That's a hard thing to do. You made a mistake. Nobody wants to admit that they made a mistake. It takes strength to admit you're wrong. And strength is supposed to be a masculine quality. This flipping around is very feminine, right? I don't have the strength to admit I'm wrong, so I'm going to play games and play around. Oh, the definition. Oh, you worship. Oh, it's a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy. Oh, what's it? But remember, I said hierarchy. It's a hierarchy. Like, bro. This is the Baby Channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. What a